They solve problems at scale, not just for themselves. What if the only difference between a struggling entrepreneur and a billionaire was not talent, not timing, not even luck, but simply the size of the problem they chose to solve? Most people wake up every morning thinking about how to make money. Successful entrepreneurs wake up thinking about how to remove pain from the lives of thousands, sometimes millions of people. This is not a motivational statement. This is a mathematical reality. When you solve a problem that affects 10 people, your ceiling is low. When you solve a problem that affects 10 million people, your ceiling becomes almost invisible. The average entrepreneur builds a business around what they know. The exceptional entrepreneur builds a business around what people desperately need. They study pain points, like a surgeon studies anatomy, with precision, with obsession, and with a complete emotional detachment from ego. They do not ask, "What am I good at?" They ask, "What keeps people awake at 3 a.m.?" They understand that the market does not reward effort. The market rewards relevance. And relevance is born from understanding human suffering at such a deep level that your solution feels less like a product and more like a lifeline. If you want to think like the top 1%, stop chasing passion and start chasing problems. The bigger the problem you solve, the bigger the empire you build. They have an obsessive relationship with speed. What if your biggest competitor was not another company, not another entrepreneur, not another product, but simply your own hesitation? Successful entrepreneurs have an almost dangerous relationship with speed. They understand something that most people never grasp. Every single day you delay a decision. The market is making that decision for you, and it is usually not in your favor. The average person waits for perfect conditions. The exceptional entrepreneur knows that perfect conditions are a fairy tale invented by people who are afraid to fail. They operate on what you might call aggressive imperfection. They launch before they are ready. They sell before the product is finished. They hire before they have enough revenue. This sounds reckless, but it is actually the most calculated strategy in business. Because feedback from the real market is worth 10,000 hours of internal planning. They treat speed as a competitive advantage, not a risk. They move so fast that competitors are always reacting to them instead of the other way around. Every hour wasted in internal debate is an hour your competitor used to acquire a customer. Every week spent perfecting a product nobody has seen yet is a week your competitor used to build brand loyalty. Speed is not about being careless. Speed is about understanding that in business, the window of opportunity opens and closes faster than most people can even recognize it. The ones who move first, iterate fastest, and learn quickest, they win. Always. They treat failure as data, not identity. What if failure was never actually failure, but simply the most expensive form of education your business school never offered you? This is perhaps the single most important mental shift that separates people who build empires from people who stay stuck in cycles of mediocrity. The average person experiences failure and immediately begins a conversation with themselves about worthiness. They ask, "Am I good enough? Maybe I am not cut out for this. Maybe people like me do not succeed." This internal narrative is catastrophic. It turns temporary setbacks into permanent retreats. Successful entrepreneurs experience that exact same failure and ask completely different questions. They ask, "What did this teach me? What was the variable that did not work? How do I adjust the input to change the output?" They strip the emotion out of failure completely. They treat a failed product launched the same way a scientist treats a failed experiment, with curiosity, not shame. And this is not because they are emotionally dead. It is because they have trained themselves to understand that failure contains intelligence. Inside every failed campaign, every lost client, every product that nobody bought, there is a signal. There is information that you cannot get any other way. The entrepreneurs who become untouchable are the ones who fail the most, the fastest, and who extract the most learning from each experience. They do not just fail forward. They fail forward, take notes, and run. They master the art of saying no. What if the secret to building a $100 million business was not doing more things, but doing fewer things with such terrifying intensity that average people cannot compete with you? The most counterintuitive truth in entrepreneurship is this: opportunity is not your friend. Opportunity, when unchecked, is actually the silent killer of businesses. Most entrepreneurs fail not because they lacked opportunities, but because they said yes to too many of them. Successful entrepreneurs understand something called focus tax. Every time you divide your attention, every project you add to your plate, every partnership you pursue out of excitement rather than strategy, you are paying a focus tax. And that tax compounds. It drains your energy, dilutes your execution, confuses your team, and ultimately produces mediocre results across 10 initiatives instead of exceptional results in one. The most successful people you will ever study have a ruthless, almost sociopathic ability to say no. No to good ideas. No to exciting collaborations. No to revenue streams that do not align with their core. Because they understand that saying yes to everything means you are exceptional at nothing. They build their businesses like a laser, not a flashlight. A flashlight spreads energy in every direction and illuminates nothing deeply. A laser concentrates energy into one point and cuts through steel. If you want to build something that cannot be ignored, you must become willing to ignore almost everything else. Say no until saying yes becomes the most powerful word in your vocabulary. They invest in themselves before they invest in anything else. What if the highest return on investment in the entire world was not real estate, not stocks, not cryptocurrency, but the space between your two ears? Every successful entrepreneur who has ever built something extraordinary has understood this one principle at a cellular level. You cannot pour from an empty cup, and you cannot build a great business from a mediocre mind. The average entrepreneur spends money on tools, software equipment, and advertising, all external infrastructure. The exceptional entrepreneur spends money on knowledge, mentorship, masterminds, and skill development, internal infrastructure. And the return is not even comparable. When you buy a piece of software, it gives you a fixed capability. When you invest in your own thinking, in your own frameworks, in your own mental models, the capability compounds indefinitely. Every book you read, every mentor you learn from, every uncomfortable conversation you have that forces you to see your blind spots, it builds a version of you that no competitor can copy. Because they can copy your product, they can copy your marketing, they can copy your pricing strategy. They cannot copy the way your mind works. The way you see problems, the way you construct solutions, the speed at which you make decisions. These are functions of how much you have invested in your own development. The most expensive thing in the world is a cheap education. And the best investment you will ever make is becoming the kind of person who can build wealth, not just once, but over and over again. They build systems, not just revenue. What if you could design a business that made money while you slept, grew while you were on vacation, and scaled while you were working on the next idea, without everything falling apart the moment you stepped away? This is not a fantasy, this is systems thinking. And it is the defining characteristic of entrepreneurs who build lasting wealth versus entrepreneurs who build glorified jobs for themselves. Most entrepreneurs are trapped in what is called the operator trap. They are the best salesperson in their company, the best manager, the best problem solver, and as a result, nothing works without them. The business does not own their time. Their business owns them. Successful entrepreneurs think differently. From the very beginning, they are not asking, how do I do this? They are asking, how do I build a system that does this without me? They document every process. They hire to strengths, not to fill gaps. They create feedback loops that allow the business to self-correct. They build metrics that tell them when something is wrong before it becomes a crisis. They understand that a business is not a collection of people doing tasks. It is a machine with inputs and outputs, and their job is to design the machine, not to be a cog inside it. Revenue is a result. Systems are the cause. If you chase revenue without building systems, you will always be starting over. If you build systems first, revenue becomes almost inevitable. What if everything you believed about success was built on a foundation so fragile, so fundamentally flawed, that every single day you are working harder in the wrong direction, moving faster toward a destination that will never make you free? What if the reason you are not where you want to be has nothing to do with your work ethic, nothing to do with your talent, nothing to do with your circumstances, and everything to do with the way you think? Not what you think about, not what you think, but the actual architecture of your thinking. The invisible mental operating system running beneath every decision you make, every risk you take, every opportunity you either seize or surrender. Because here's what nobody tells you when you start a business. Nobody sits you down and says, look, the market does not care about your effort. The market does not give rewards based on hours logged or sacrifices made or how badly you want it. The market rewards one thing and one thing only: clarity. Clarity of thought, clarity of execution, clarity of offer. And clarity is not something you stumble into. Clarity is built. It is engineered. It is the direct output of thinking in a way that most people have never been taught, will never discover on their own, and will spend their entire entrepreneurial lives desperately searching for without ever finding. What if I told you that the gap between where you are right now and where you dream of being is not measured in years of effort? It is measured in mental shifts. Specific, surgical, almost uncomfortable shifts in the way your brain processes opportunity, failure, focus, and growth. And what if those shifts are not complicated? What if they are actually brutally simple, but simple in the way that the truth is always simple, which means most people look directly at them and walk straight past them? Because the mind always mistakes complexity for value. Let me show you what I mean. The first thing that separates people who build empires from people who build jobs is this. They stopped thinking about money and started thinking about magnitude. They stopped asking, how do I make more money? And started asking, how many people am I actually helping? And how deeply am I helping them? This sounds like a philosophical shift. It is actually a financial strategy. Because here's the mathematical reality that nobody wants to talk about. The size of your income is almost always a direct reflection of the size of the problem you are solving. Not the quality of your solution, the size of the problem. A great solution to a small problem produces a small business. A decent solution to a massive problem produces a massive business. The most successful entrepreneurs I have ever studied do not wake up thinking about revenue targets. They wake up thinking about how many people are in pain right now, in this moment, and how quickly they can remove that pain at scale. They are not product people. They are not service people. They are pain removal specialists operating at industrial capacity. And when you understand this, when this genuinely lands in your body and not just your mind, your entire approach to building a business changes. You stop competing on features. You stop competing on price. You start competing on relevance. And relevance, real relevance, the kind that makes customers feel like you read their diary, is built only from obsession with the problem, not the solution. The problem. But understanding the problem is not enough. Because here is where most smart, talented, hardworking entrepreneurs get destroyed. They understand the problem. They build the solution. And then they wait. They wait for it to be ready. They wait for it to be perfect. They wait for validation from people who do not have skin in the game, who will never actually buy what they are selling, who offer opinions from the safety of zero risk. And while they wait, the market moves. And while the market moves, someone with half their talent and twice their courage launches something imperfect, gets real feedback from real customers, iterates, improves, and builds a brand loyalty that takes years to disrupt. Speed is not recklessness. I need you to hear that clearly. Speed is the most sophisticated strategic weapon available to any entrepreneur at any stage of business. When you move fast, you fail fast, which means you learn fast, which means you get better faster than any competitor who is still sitting in a conference room debating font colors. The market does not reward the best product. The market rewards the best product that people actually know exists. And people cannot know about your product if you are still perfecting it in private. Ship it, launch it, sell it before it is done. Because the version of your product that exists in the real world, even broken, even imperfect, even half-finished, it is infinitely more valuable than the version that exists only in your head. Now, when you move fast, you are going to fail. This is not a possibility. This is a certainty. And what happens next, the story you tell yourself about that failure, will determine whether you go on to build something extraordinary, or whether you spend the next decade in a slow spiral of playing small and calling it wisdom. The average person experiences failure and immediately converts it into identity. The business failed, therefore I am a failure. The product did not sell, therefore I am not good enough. The partnership fell apart, therefore I cannot be trusted. This conversion from external event to internal identity is the most dangerous cognitive error in entrepreneurship. And almost everyone makes it. The exceptional thinkers do something different. They experience that same failure, and they perform what you might call an autopsy without grief. They lay the failure out on the table, they examine every single variable, they ask what the data is telling them, and they extract the intelligence that is buried inside the disappointment. Because failure is not the opposite of success. Failure is not even the enemy of success. Failure is the curriculum of success. It is the most honest, most expensive, most unfiltered education you will ever receive. Every failed launch taught you something about your customer that your research never would have. Every lost client taught you something about your offer that your team meetings never would have surfaced. Every product that flopped showed you a gap in your thinking that would have become catastrophic later if you had not found it now. The entrepreneurs who become untouchable are not the ones who fail less. They are the ones who fail more, who extract more from each failure, and who refuse, with an almost violent stubbornness, to let failure write their story. But here is the paradox. The same entrepreneur who needs to move fast and fail forward also needs to develop the ability to say no to almost everything. These two things sound like they contradict each other. They do not. Speed is about execution. Focus is about selection. And the selection of what you choose to execute on is perhaps the most critical decision you will ever make in your business. Opportunity is seductive. It is designed to look like the answer to all your problems. A new partnership comes along and it looks like revenue. A new market opens up and it looks like growth. A new product idea appears and it looks like scale. And for the average entrepreneur, every opportunity looks like a yes. But the most successful people you will ever study have built an almost bulletproof filter that converts most opportunities into a firm, unapologetic no, not because the opportunities are bad, but because they understand the cost of yes. Every yes is a withdrawal from your focus bank. Every new initiative is a division of your energy. Every partnership you pursue dilutes your execution on your core. And execution, deep, obsessive, maniacal execution on one thing, it is always worth more than mediocre execution on 10 things. Build your business like a laser. Concentrate everything you have into one point with such ferocity that average competitors cannot even see you clearly, let alone compete with you. The day you master the word no is the day your business starts to become something that cannot be ignored. And while you are building that laser focus, while you are solving big problems at scale, and moving fast, and learning from failure, and saying no to distractions, Do not forget the most important investment you will ever make. Not in your product, not in your team, not in your marketing, in yourself, in the space between your two ears. Because every business you will ever build will be a direct physical manifestation of your current level of thinking. The business cannot outgrow the entrepreneur. It never does. It is a law as reliable as gravity. If you are thinking at a $10,000 per month level, you will build a $10,000 per month business. If you want to build $1 million business, you must first become $1 million thinker. And that happens through relentless, deliberate, almost uncomfortable investment in your own development. Books, mentors, masterminds. Rooms where you are the least experienced person present. Conversations that challenge your assumptions. Feedback that stings. Perspectives that make you feel temporarily stupid. All of this is compounding equity in the asset that will never depreciate, cannot be copied, cannot be stolen, and will follow you into every business you ever build for the rest of your life. Your mind. Invest there first, invest there constantly, and watch how everything else becomes easier. And finally, when you have done all of this, when you have identified the right problem, when you are moving fast, when you are learning from failure, when you are focused like a laser, when you are investing in yourself, build the system, not the revenue. The system that produces the revenue, because revenue without systems is just chaos with a positive balance sheet. It is energy without direction. It is potential without leverage. The most dangerous place any entrepreneur can be is indispensable to their own business. If the business cannot function without your direct daily involvement, you have not built a business. You have built a prison with good lighting. Systems are how you escape that prison. Systems are how you build something that grows when you are not watching, that serves customers when you are sleeping, that compounds in value every single month without requiring you to personally be the engine. Document everything, build feedback loops, create metrics that tell you the truth before the truth becomes a crisis. Hire people who are better than you at the things you should not be doing.